This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. I see we have N3IM with us from Pennsylvania. Thank you for being here. Today is the Medical Amateur Radio Council Grand Rounds Leonette, but we're talking peripherally about medical subjects and the health benefits of watching sports, if there are any health benefits. And as looking through the literature, and we have mostly roundtable discussions because we want to know, particularly from everyone's perspective, what they have, what they find, and what teams they enjoy. This is a celebration day, meaning that it is Super Bowl Sunday here. It's a day of culture, mass culture, popular culture. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the early Super Bowls as well. But I'm looking at the literature about health benefits from sports, certainly with playing sports. There are many studies that talk about the health benefits. And it's not just one sport, it goes across the whole spectrum of sporting events. So if we look at sports medicine, there was an article, you can go online and find it in open sports medicine called Health Benefits of Different Sports, Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis of Longitudinal Intervention Studies with 2.6 million adult participants. And they're looking at specific sports such as baseball, cricket, cross-country skiing, cycling, and et cetera, and looking to see what health benefits there were from participating in it. So today's net is going to take a little bit of a different tact. That's well known that you can participate and be healthier from it, of course, in a common sense way. But what about if you're watching TV or if you're being a spectator in the crowd? I mean, is there a benefit there? Potentially, there's some articles, and we'll just briefly talk about some of the literature that I ran across. There's an article in Sports Management Review. It's actually a 2025 edition article. You can look up. It's called Sports Spectator Wellbeing, a scoping review. And it talks about the sport consumer well-being being central to enriching research in the interaction between sports organizations and consumers or advancing public policy. And let's look at the well-being of sports spectators, the formulation of well-being process model. So it's being discussed. I haven't really seen it in the literature from a long time ago analysis. Most of the articles I ran into were fairly recent, but that one you can find on the internet. There's another one that I found that you can find on the internet. Let's see, which looks like it's in nutrients. And this one goes to the negative side. It's just in general, regardless of sports, watching television while eating increases food intake to a systematic review and meta-analysis of experimental studies. And that's the Journal of Nutrients. That's a December 2024 article. I mean, the Super Bowl has nothing to do with food. There's no commercials that are regarding food on the during the Super Bowl. Nobody watches the football game for the commercials, I take it. Well, that being said, there's another article I ran across from JAMA. Actually, it was a JAMA opened article. It's called Salt and Nutritional Contents of Food Advertised During Televised Professional Football Games. Speaking of the Super Bowl and commercials, well, as you're watching the game today, if you're not watching the Puppy Bowl instead, and you're watching for the commercials, see how many are food related. Now, is that food healthy? This article talks about it from a salt and nutritional content, because certainly a lot of people that watch the game have heart failure and kidney failure and advanced disease, and for the average person, some of these foods may not be as harmful in the immediacy, but as time goes on and organ systems change, you're going to be more susceptible to these foods. So, what about older adults? I mean, is there a benefit for watching sports if you're older? Is that good? Is that good for your health in general? I mean, it's not just a matter of whether or not it's mental health and well-being. There's other potential benefits. This one was in Gerontology, the journal of watching sports and subsequent health and well-being in older adults. longitudinal outcome, wide study. This was March. It must be brand new. So let's see, 2025. Get a chance to look that one up. I think you'll find that to be interesting. It's a free article. You don't have to worry about having to find a abstract only. Some of these studies on the internet are just available through abstracts. I'm going to pause for a second. This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta, Medical Amateur Radio Council with Graham Young's Lee talking about the Super Bowl today. We're going to move to individual comments from members here shortly in a roundtable sort of way. I'm throwing these out for discussion so that we can all talk about that. And when we talk about the older adults, and is there a positive psychological effect? What about neurophysiological effects? So certainly we have members here that can speak to that. Net participants, please do. But pausing for a second for additional check-ins. We encourage all amateur radio operators to participate and check in. Make a call to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Okay, no additional check-ins on 20 meters, but if you are listening and find it interesting and decide to participate in a roundtable discussion, we'll be more than happy to have you. This is AA4 at Halta Mike. We're operating out of Hawthorne, Florida. If you need to point your antenna this way. What about the service quality that's affected? What about a European outlook? Looking at European Sports Management Quarterly article from 2023, it's football, the real football, the soccer in Europe. It has a different feel to it in a way. I mean, here in the United States, we're a big country, and we have teams from all across the country. It's adversarial in a way, but not from a cultural standpoint. In Europe, you've got numerous countries close together, so it's a different dynamic. And certainly, you've read about hooligans from countries that come to make it even more fun. They have a lot of sporting events, high. But they're claiming that the service quality also is important. The service quality of the venue, the food that they have, and they offer to satisfy their fans. It looks like a totally different dynamic. Do we have any comments at this time that anyone would like to make? I'll take a list from 20 meters first. Make your call. Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Okay, I'm not hearing anything on 20 meters. That's interesting. Talking this morning on the digital net I was on, a lot of ham radio operators are interested in different sports, not traditionally the football. Of course, some of us are, and football and basketball. But you hear about sports racing and things that are more technically inclined and mechanically inclined. And that might be true for some of you who are listening. So again, don't be shy about participating. How about on Zoom? Is there anyone that has a comment at this time? Go ahead and let me know. Well, that being said or not said, I'm gonna have to start doing some arm twisting for those of you that are here today. So we do have some Buffalo Bill fans with us. We have Barry, WB1FFI. Of course, Barry, we've had an interesting year in Buffalo. There's been ups and downs. So how emotionally engaged do people get? And do you feel that when the team is doing better, there's a health benefit? Or is when the team is just physically is not doing as well on the win-loss column, does it create stresses might lead to issues with their health? Barry, if you wouldn't mind commenting about the Buffalo Bills, please take them up.
Yeah, good morning. I live in Syracuse, which is about a few hours drive from Buffalo. So we have a hybrid here. There are fans of New York City teams, the Jets and the Giants. mixed in with Buffalo Bills fans and a scattering of New England Patriot fans for people that um, have allegiance in the easterly direction. Um, yeah, I mean, I think there was general disappointment from the Bills' point of view and the fans' base because the quarterback is one of the top quarterbacks, Allen, Josh Allen, and there were a lot of expectations that this would be the year that the team would make it to the Super Bowl and hopefully win a Super Bowl, which they haven't done yet. There was that disastrous 4 years in a row where they made the Super Bowl. This is probably 25, 30 years ago in the 90s. And 4 years in a row, they lost the Super Bowl. In fact, the first one was the one that came the closest, and that was where they missed the field goal with seconds to go. So, yeah, I mean, there's kind of a lot of superstition and involving the team. They fired the coach at the end of the season. That created a lot of controversy. And I don't know, it's like wait till next year. And that's a situation with the Buffalo Bills. They do have a very loyal fan base called the Bills Mafia. And they follow the team. They go on road trips with the team. And very dedicated group. They have to be. They get more snow usually than we do. Although this year Syracuse is winning the race. We have more snow than Buffalo. Our weather reports always kind of compare us to Binghamton, which is south of us, Buffalo, and Albany, and they have a prize called the Golden Snowball. And so far, we're leading in that competition, and probably a few more. Well, probably as the groundhog said, 6 more weeks of winter. So at least we've had late season, we've had April and even into May some snow. So just the way it is here. If you don't like snow and you don't like cold, it's not a great place to spend your time unless you have a place in the South for a few months in the winter. And a lot of people do. But having said all that, with regard to the teams, I think there's general feeling because the New York teams have not played well. The Jets are sad sacks. They really, since the Joe Namath days of 1969, the Jets have not even been competitive. The Giants have had a couple of successful years and won the Super Bowl. So, but they're going through a lull at this point too. And of course, the Patriots are in it. And we'll see what happens today. Being Syracuse, I think a lot of people are kind of whatever, just another game. But it's just a thing to do on a cold winter night. Although the games for Eastern time, 6:15, usually push you in 10 o'clock plus area by the time the game ends. So it's a long late game, and the halftime always takes a long time because they make a big deal of it. So anyway, Jay, that's pretty much my observations about football situation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, WV1FFI, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta at the mic for ID purposes. And today we're transmitting out of Hawthorne, Florida, home call AA4FL. We appreciate that take on football, Barry, but I know you need a little break from talking for a second, but I do have a follow-up question. I know you're also a Syracuse basketball fan, and if you could comment, you're talking about university events, and I'm sure you've been to Rich Stadium at some point for the football games. I think that's the name of the stadium. So what about the type of food they offer to the spectators that are attending the game? Is it the same type of fare at the pro football games in Buffalo, if you've ever been to a game or a Jets game in New York? Or is it actually different at a basketball game at Syracuse? What any observation from that point? Go ahead.
Regarding professional football, I've amazingly, being I'm 71 years old, I've only been to one professional football game, and it was when my son was young, and a number of us parents chaperoned a bunch of kids from his school. We went to a Bills game. It had to be 15, 20 plus years
For some
ago.
reason, I can't get this to.
Somebody else's microphone is open. Anyway, so I don't really have a whole lot of recall except for one funny story. It was a Jets Bills game in Buffalo, and one of the parents that was with our group, either without thinking or thinking, wore his Jets shirt to the game. And the Buffalo Bills fans, as many fans probably are at NFL stadiums, they tailgate before the games and they get primed. They usually can be a few sheets to the wind by the time they get into the stadium. And all I can tell you is that it didn't make any difference that we had very young children with us. They were probably 12 or 11 years old. Beer, popcorn, whatever was able to be thrown in our direction was indeed done that. And it was a rough spectator experience. um, Regarding the pro, this is the last season, and it's done now. Buffalo will be going into a new stadium, which is open. Interestingly, they didn't put a dome on it. What they did was they covered the fan areas so the fans wouldn't be subject to all the harsh weather, or at least shielded from it. But the field would still be able to be snow covered and affected by the wind, etc. So obviously they planned this out. Don't know why. They don't share that strategy with us, but Buffalo has a reputation for, like Green Bay and some of these other places, to have cold weather, snow, and so forth, and it kind of adds to the football lore. With regard to the Syracuse University situation, I've been to both football and basketball, which are both in an enclosed facility. It used to be called the Carrier Dome, which was named after the air conditioner company, which for a long time was in Syracuse. Interestingly, even though it was named after the Carrier, it was not air conditioned inside. So in the fall, especially the end of the summer, it would get really hot. And it was kind of ironic because, it's Carrier Dome. Well, a few years ago, Carrier basically picked up and moved. They make most of their profitable units are made out of the country now or in the South. The big thing that the Carrier sells are the units that are on containers, on trailers. And you think about how many thousands and thousands of these containers are on ships and trucks. So it's a big business. And just about all of them need some kind of air conditioning, not just for food, but just to keep things from spoiling or getting whatever, they're on ships for a long period of time. And so anyway, that whole division basically lifted up and left us. So they renamed the dome. It's named after some company, or it's obviously not marketed well because I'd have to look it up every time. It's like 3 letters, but it is a better roof. It used to be an inflatable roof. Now it's a solid roof. It is air conditioned. I think I've been to it a few times. We used to have seasons tickets to the basketball. Quick thing. Back when we were in the Big East years ago, the games would start at 7 o'clock at night, which was 2-hour basketball game, finish at 9, get home, not too bad. With the ACC, they're 8 and 9 o'clock starts. So my wife and I a few years ago just said, we can watch the games on TV. We're getting a little old for marching up and down it's a big hill from the parking lot to the stadium. And especially at the end of the game, it's like a single file, and people light up right after
14 and shit.
people light up their cigarettes right after they leave the dome, and not a fun experience. So, but in regard to your question about the food, I mean, most of it's not the healthy stuff. I mean, it's nachos and hot dogs, and I don't know, nothing that any cardiologist would recommend. So, I hope I answered your question, Jay. Back to you.
Okay, well, that is Barry WB1 FFI on our take from Western New York, from the Syracuse area particularly. We have another check-in. We have Don with us, K1DCA, coming to us from Patriot Country, from the general area of the Cape. And Don, would you like to tell us a little bit about the excitement around the Patriots being in the Super Bowl again today? K1DCA, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta, go ahead.
I don't follow sports. You know, it may be strange in this country, but I find spectator sports a little draining. You get excited over the sports, but then really they're a bit overpaid. We could do a lot more with the millions of dollars we pay them. We could immunize people. We could feed homeless. And I just don't get the excitement of watching somebody else do something. So I'm at home on my radio, paying attention to what's important here in my family. But thank you for asking.
K1DCA. And, you know, Don, that's a point very well taken. I agree with you on the numerous levels. Same thing with actors and many popular musicians and popular culture. So, but I do have one question for Admiral Don. Did you watch the Army-Navy game?
Oh, I did not. I don't even know who won. Who won?
I don't know if it was a Navy or this year, but just I mean in general. Thanks for being with us, Don.
What did Navy win, you say, or who did?
I don't know, but win or lose, I'm sure they did not sink in the hearts of their fans.
Well, the Army and Navy are at war with each other for 3 hours a year. And the rest of the time, any one of them would give their lives for their country. That's something that a lot of people don't remember.
And that's quite the contrary to what's happening with, the sports and all the money being spent on sports. We're talking about unselfishness versus basically entertainment, of course. Thank you for being with us here. Let's on 20 meters here. Do we have some of our members or friends, anybody that's listening on 20 meters? Would you like to comment on your favorite sports team and the experiences you had this year, particularly since it's Super Bowl Sunday from a football standpoint? Make your call to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta to start a list. Well, I guess we don't have 20-meter participants that are interested in football. See, we're so noble as a group of amateur radio operators. We're not so focused on those aspects of life. And I found that common in talking to amateur radio operators today. So I'm going to have to twist some arms and ask Mary, AE4BX, you're here with us today. Now, Mary, your kids are practicing physicians in the Charlotte area. And this year was a very good year for the Carolina football fans. So you had moved up from Myrtle Beach. Did you get involved in any of the watching Charlotte football, Carolina football activities this year, Mary? Go ahead.
Well, living right here, I'm on the South Carolina border, but right next to Charlotte. And so you can't avoid this talk about Charlotte football and how disappointed they are and how hopeful they are that they're going to make the playoffs, and then they do it. But I only watch if it's a Packers. That's my roots up there. So the Packers don't play down here very often, so I don't watch much. And I don't care who wins the Super Bowl tonight. the East Coast and West Coast, nothing for us in the middle. I may go to the party, but it's a good have, but I don't watch the game.
Well, a lot of people marry A4BX, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. It's the commercials. The
Yeah.
football and the halftime show is often the Puppy Bowls.
Halftime show is full of commercials. You don't get the halftime show, so.
Well, that's why they go to the Puppy Bowl instead. But I do have a Packer story for you. Okay. On two ways. When Disney World first opened, I went to Disney World and visited, and they brought me to the front of the monorail. And the person that I met was Jerry Kramer of the Packers from the famous Ice Bowl, the Packers Cowboys game in the NFL before it was a Super Bowl, the one that blocked for Bart Starr, I think, to make the winning touchdown on that game. The other Packer story I'm going to explain, or I'll talk a little bit about the early Super Bowls. Going up to Miami, no one really cared about the Super Bowls because the Packers were so dominant. They thought that the AFL at the time would never have a chance of beating the Packers. And I went to Super Bowl II, where the Packers just actually took apart Oakland, and they had done it in Super Bowl I in California. And that was my first pro football game, Super Bowl II. The Dolphins were fairly brand new, and my family hadn't gotten Dolphin tickets yet. But I was there for our New York fans, Barry. I was there for the Jets Super Bowl win. I'm one of the, I don't know how many people are alive. I was there 9 years old. I was there watching Joe Namath lead the Jets to that win. And interesting enough, because I was there afterwards for all the perfect season and games for the Miami Dolphins, we did get tickets. And we booed Don Shula. He was coaching the Colts. We didn't know he was going to be coach of the Dolphins the following year. So I was also at the Super Bowl V, that was Dallas and Baltimore. The Baltimore win finally. And that's being at those three Super Bowls. What was interesting is talking to some of my friends who were also 89 years old in those early games. And one in particular said, I didn't have tickets to Super Bowl III. I just went down there. They were giving them away. So I got tickets. And the most expensive thing that day was the $20 we spent on the programs. So how about that, Don, for an interesting turn of events? Now with the Super Bowl is, you probably can't get a ticket for under $5,000-$10,000. Back then they were giving them away. And Mary, that was your fault because nobody thought that the AFL had a chance from the NFL. And of course, when the Jets won that game, all history changed. The leagues merged, and there was an AFC and the NFC and the unified NFL. Do we have any comments on 20 meters now about the Super Bowl? Make your call to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Go ahead again, make your call. Okay, we're having a net here at 20 meters. I'm sorry, we are looking for a test. We're looking for check-ins. Do you have comments about the Super Bowl today? Over. Okay, well, we are on 20 meters live, and we do appreciate everyone allows us the frequency for the net. I'm going to pivot here to the Tampa Bay area because I've got KC9CS with us. And there's been some interesting recent years, particularly after they had one quarterback from New England that came on board. But in addition, they did win the Super Bowl before. So, Bill, tell me a little bit about your experiences with Tampa Bay and what you think about food for football, watching football, health risks, health benefits. Where do you think the balance is? Is there any benefit emotionally as we get older from watching sports when we can't participate in them at that age? And, it gets harder on the body. I'll turn it over to KC9CS. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Jay, I'm not much of a football fan, but I do watch the Buccaneers when they play. But I'm probably more of a hockey fan than anything, and we have a superb hockey team here in Tampa. I've enjoyed that. My earliest hockey game that I can recall was in 1960s when my dad took me in 1960 to see the Chicago Blackhawks play. And those were the days of Bobby Hull, Stan Mikita, and it's made a lifelong hockey fan out of me. I do watch football, but not a great deal. As far as anything, if there's any kind of physiologic effects of watching sports, it's to get my blood pressure up, especially when the Tampa Bay Lightning are playing the Florida Panthers from down in Sunrise. That turns out to be a virtual war every time they get together, and I can't wait for the hockey season to resume. Today, I could care less about who's playing today in football. I will probably be tuned into to the Olympics, to be honest with you, because there's stuff on the Olympics that I enjoy. Really enjoy downhill skiing. Enjoy watching, you know, any of the hockey, whether it's women's hockey, men's hockey, stuff like that. And you know, actually had a good time yesterday watching the figure skaters, with their training sessions. Um, so I'm pretty varied in sports. I'll watch anything, and if it comes down to it, and there's nothing else on, I'll even tune in and watch curling.
Okay, the All-Star curling competition. I like curling. I spoke to a station in Toronto today, so I can relate to the curling and the hockey as well. Yeah, I enjoy. I've been to Lightning games, and I've been to also Panther games. I've been to both. So it depends who's coming to town and playing. Sometimes we'll come in. So as a dentist, we personally have an affinity for hockey because we get to replace a lot of missing front teeth. But so much. There was an interesting conversation, by the way, when we talk about health, and this is on the player standpoint. My daughter was an attorney and was involved in the NHL concussion case. And one thing she found out during the interviews that kind of shocked her for the health of the players. For years, hockey players didn't wear helmets, but they wore cups. So what was more valuable to them at that point? Well, go ahead, over.
Well, to be honest with you, I grew up in an era when none of the hockey goalies wore helmets, and I can remember some of the goalies were, famous for the number of stitches that they took on their, to the face when the pucks would hit them. And, they'd disappear off the ice for a few minutes and, go down into the dressing room, and they'd come out with fresh stitches, and they'd finish playing the game. So there's some rough individuals. When you get hit in the face at 90 miles an hour with a frozen 3-inch, piece of hard rubber, it's, something's got to give. And in a lot of cases, like you mentioned, it's the teeth. So, it's a rough sport, but I enjoy it, and it's all as a result of growing up on the Illinois-Wisconsin state line. And I'll tell you, as a kid, as soon as the ice could support us, we were out there on the pond in back of our barn. We'd go out there and test it, and you could watch the bubbles underneath the ice, and you'd watch the deflection, and you could tell exactly how thick the ice was from, the movement of the bubbles. But as soon as it froze over, we got on the ice.
Okay, thanks for that. Relating that, I'm sure Mary is excited here, she being from Wisconsin herself. We had the opposite growing up in Miami, of course. There was one ice rink in town, but interesting. When I grew up in Miami, we had the Dolphins. Not when I was born, but they probably about the mid 1960s. And we only had minor league. We did have a professional soccer team when I was in high school, the Strikers. Well, the Toros, the Strikers were in Fort Lauderdale. But we really didn't have much sports. And when I went to the University of Florida, we had more sports there. And I was a sports fan. I decided to stay in Gainesville rather than come back to Miami. I'm going to turn the mic over. Let's see. Keith, are you still with us and through IM? Would you like to talk a little bit, Keith? I'd certainly like you to tell everybody a little bit about the involvement in the sport that you have, uh, the boxing sport. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I'm here. A couple of things. Being so close to Penn State University, we obviously have significant football taking place here. But interestingly, going back to hockey, we recently had an outdoor hockey game in Beaver Stadium. But because the temperatures were so cold, the ice was actually cracking under their feet, and it had to do with the temperature that they were in. But they had 70 some thousand fans at that hockey game, which says something for this neighborhood. Plus, they have what is supposed to be one of the number 1 or 2 picks in the upcoming NHL draft playing for them. Obviously, Penn State football is big here, and there's expectations which were not seen this past season, which led to some drama with the coach being let go. They're currently revamping Beaver Stadium and still having football there at the same time. But we're in the Philadelphia Eagles and Pittsburgh Steelers territory, as well as Phillies and Pirates territory. And so there's a lot of sports related here. On top of that, Lock Haven is known as, or has been known as Madtown, USA. Gray Simons and Sarah McBride, both Olympic medalists, came from Lock Haven University. Sarah McBride became a medalist before there was much female wrestling taking place in colleges. And she was actually expected to win the gold medal, but ended up being the silver medalist. And she admits that she had a 1 or 2 second relaxation that cost her the gold medal. She went on to do MMA after college, but we also have collegiate boxing, and it's really rather remarkable. It's a club sport. It's not an NCAA sport. The NCAA eliminated it back in the 60s, and in the mid 70s, a number of coaches, one of whom was at Lock Haven, got together and had some kids who wanted to do boxing and developed the National Collegiate Boxing Association, which covers the entire United States as what they call a local boxing club. And we have regular boxing events throughout the year. Recently, Navy hosted a big boxing event this coming weekend. On Friday, Penn State's hosting a boxing event. And on Saturday, Lock Haven University is hosting a boxing event. And as of this point in time, it looks like we're going to have 25 bouts on Saturday. We have one school from Canada that, as we've been trying to get the USA Boxing committees to allow them to become part of our LBC, but they haven't yet, but they come down from Crandall University and participate. And they participate in the entire situation, even to the nationals level, regionals and nationals level. And it's quite an interesting sport because there's 3 2-minute rounds. The kids are never going to go, most of them are never going to go on to professional. Once in a while, you get one that ends up trying to go professional. But they have a camaraderie, which is unreal. It's just amazing to watch these kids go out there and box and try to really box hard. And then 15 minutes later, you'll see them over in the corner laughing and carrying on. I mean, it's an amazing the camaraderie they get. and you have all the academies. You have Coast Guard, West Point, Navy, Air Force are all involved. Matter of fact, one of the people who was big in getting the NCBA started, Andy Wishers, is from the Air Force Academy, and they actually have an annual event at the New York Athletic Club every fall, where the collegiate boxers perform, and so it's an interesting neighborhood here. As far as food's concerned, when it comes to our sports up here, it's mostly the same old, nachos and hot dogs and hamburgers and stuff like that. Occasionally you'll get to an event, particularly with the boxing club, when Salvation Army comes in and serves different foods, not just hot dogs and hamburgers. Sometimes pizza and sometimes homemade goods. So quite a sports-oriented area up here in north Pennsylvania. I like to call it north central Pennsylvania because everybody thinks of central Pennsylvania, they think of Harrisburg, which is in the south, about an hour and a half or so. We're up between Penn State and Williamsport. There you go again, Williamsport, Little League Baseball. A lot of interest in Little League Baseball. We're halfway between Penn State and Williamsport, and so we see a lot of that. The Nittany Amateur Radio Club in the past has helped with concessions at Beaver Stadium, and I've been involved in that in the past. And with the Little League Baseball, the local lodge here has helped out with Little League Baseball at the concession stands. What's interesting is Little League Baseball, the World Series of Little League Baseball is free, totally free. No entry fee. You do have to go through security, but there's no entry fee, and you can watch all the games, or as many as you can, because there's 2 fields. And so that's interesting that's totally free of charge. No, I mean, there may be a parking charge, but if you ride with somebody, then there's no fee. So that's my story on this end. Back to Jay and the rest of the crew.
There's M3IM in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. And this is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta for ID AA4F Alpha Mike, and transmitting out of Hawthorne, Florida. Medical Amateur Radio Council Net, for those of you who aren't familiar with our net, meets every week at this time, at this frequency. Now, interesting, and Andy, I'm going to ask you, WJB, some questions in just a minute, because being someone that was involved with a lot of seniors and a geriatric-centered practice, and you're also in a community, Columbus, that has college sports, and there's been a big change in college. Don's, I think, checked out already. K1DCA mentioned the money involved, and it used to be for those that were disenfranchised from pro sports because of playing for money. College sports was a refuge, and of course now the big college teams, the players are getting big dollars. But the other health risk that is kind of new, aside from food, and I don't see where you get much benefit on the health side, is the betting. So as you're watching the Super Bowl today, it'd be interesting to see, since everything's becoming so betting centric in sports these days, regardless if it's college basketball or pro basketball, the same for football. It'd be interesting to see if all of a sudden we aren't getting money spent on commercials for betting, because we know how expensive it is to buy a commercial and for a product, a food that you might be advertising. You're spending a lot of money for that or whatever else. The very famous commercials for certain food products. But be interesting to see what presence betting has. So, Andy, a lot of seniors they can be compromised in their health as they get older. And when watching football, there's certainly a psychological benefit because you can't benefit from playing in sports as much anymore, certain sports. So there's ways to still get your exercise. But on the other hand, you also get the risk, especially if you're on the borderline, which could make you susceptible to a crisis. So can you think of any circumstances in your medical practice where either of those two things happened? Turn the mic over to WJB. This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Okay, we'll get a second. We'll go to get WJB online with us here momentarily. This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta and the Medical Amateur Radio Council. Matt, Andy, are you ready to go? Go ahead, WJB.
Yeah, hopefully it's working now. So good. Yeah, it's WJB. As far as the biggest thing, I guess, food-wise for elderly people, I think has already been mentioned. You can have elevated sugar from too many carbohydrates, obviously, and for people with heart failure, obviously, that the salt consumption for snacks that are often used for sports games and so forth could be an issue. As far as benefits go, I think benefits, probably the main benefit is socialization. So, you watch a football game. I mean, sure, you can watch it by yourself, and I'm sure there's a few people that do, but if frequently, it's with somebody else, be it your spouse or friends, or if you've invited over to your home or you went to their home to watch the game, certainly you get benefit of socialization if you actually go to a game. So that's certainly a benefit. That helps, especially as you age, because a lot of times you don't. If you're retired, you're not around anywhere near as many people as you are when you're working. Um, as far as local sports, of course, Ohio State is a major football power and is the main focus in the Columbus metro area. We have two professional teams that are only 100 miles away each direction, Cleveland and Cincinnati. I grew up a Cleveland fan because Cincinnati as a team didn't exist yet until I was about high school age, and that's when they came about. Um, and of course, I lived in Cincinnati for 4 years, and I went to medical school, so we pay attention to both of those teams for that reason. And of course, Cincinnati has a very good quarterback and a very poor defense, and in Cleveland's the other way around. Their quarterbacks have been a string of problems, yet their defense is the best in probably one of the best in the entire National Football League. But as far as the benefit, probably socialization. That's the thing I would underline because I think that's helpful for most people, particularly elderly people who may not be around people outside their own home that often. So back to you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you, WJB, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta for ID, Medical Amateur Radio Council Net, Grand Round Leo. Do we have any light check-ins on 20 meters? Make your call. Okay, we have additional check-in on the Zoom side. VA3KY is with us. Shelley, if you're copying, I'd like to hear from you from a Canadian perspective, if you could participate, being that you're in the Toronto area. And I know the Canadian Football League may not be your cup of tea, but certainly I would hope that it's has different aspects than the NFL now with the betting here south of the border that's taking place. But also your involvement with people that are having emotional disorders and such. Do you feel that watching sports can have a negative effect on someone's well-being, just for particularly if they have a particular issue with processing or any other aspects that you can think of? Shall we? VA3KY, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta.
My microphone is working. Can you hear me, Jay?
QSL, go ahead, Shelley.
Good. Okay. Sorry to come in late. I had a few extra calls from people that call themselves patients. Basically, Yeah, I worked in the field of forensic psychiatry for 21 years and a large Toronto facility, the largest in Canada, called CAM8, Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Then the pandemic came, and of course, we jumped off, and I formed a practice called patient advocacy. But I concur with the other physician that socialization is extremely important for the, I guess, the aging population. I won't call them elderly, I call them aging. I think it's derogatory to say elderly. Everybody's elderly to a certain extent on a reference scale. I guess the other thing is you talked about Canadian. Here in our sports domain, what we're seeing, especially in the hockey domain, is that every 15 minutes, the gambling is advertised. Place a bet 150 plus, 250 minus. And so that caters to the younger population. They're using their unfortunate families' credit cards to place these bets. And without even the knowledge of their family member, I don't know how they got a hold of the PIN number, but we see that too often. I'm just amazed at the number of commercials that are being put on screen for the entire family, including young children. Because hockey, of course, is our main sport here in Canada, especially in Toronto. Yeah, as far as the actual game itself today, that's your biggest day, I think, in sporting history. With your Super Bowl, millions of people will be watching, and I think, what do they say? It's how many millions to advertise for 30 seconds? Was it $3 million for a 30-second ad? It's kind of interesting. 30 seconds of advertising, either $3 or $5 million, if I remember correctly. Again, food is always part of a nice sort of sporting event. I don't think there are too many people who don't eat during a sporting event, even when you're in person or whether you're watching on TV. But again, people, as the physician aptly pointed out, one has to be careful if you have underlying comorbid conditions, especially a diabetic, when they're saying, oh, I'm going to this friend's house and there's only going to be 25 people there and they're going to have everything and anything. And we're going to order everything under the sun, including our famous carbohydrate and metabolic diet. So, I mean, I think a one-time situation shouldn't really affect someone's underlying conditions unless they're really going overboard, just from a medical perspective. But, everything once in a while won't harm you. We always talk about medicine as being a balance of life. There's another hospital calling. It's okay, let them ring all night. So I think, a one-time shot of overdoing something shouldn't really impact someone's health. People always ask me, how come my A1C is so high? So, well, you know what? It's not just a one-time sort of tapping into your glucose levels. It's a 90-day average, and they check on an average basis. So one time may not impact unless you're really out of whack with your underlying conditions, such as diabetes or even hypertension. We see excessive amount of sodium as we all eat in our diet. Is there anything that isn't without sodium these days? But anyways, I'm a little bit different than most people. I'm very strict in diet, very strict in exercise, but I try to preach that with my unfortunate disadvantaged patients who are really ill and who look for my assistance in trying to navigate this terrible medical system in Canada. It's free. Just because it's free doesn't necessarily mean it's good. And, how long do you wait for an MRI of the knee? Well, 6 to 8 months. How long do you wait to see a specialist? Hopefully within 30 days. It doesn't work that way unless you know somebody like me. It's usually average 2 months to see a specialist, and surgeries are extremely difficult to obtain. Anyways, that's what I have to say at this point. But thank you for inviting me to this wonderful group of seasoned veterans, I guess. And we'll send it back to you, Jay. Victor Alpha 3, Kilo Yankee in the wonderful warm city of Toronto, where it's minus 35 Celsius, minus 31 degrees Fahrenheit today. Come and visit Toronto.
Oh, okay. Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta with VA3KY. You made our Syracuse members feel very happy in that description there. how different it is in Toronto. It's amazing how a short bit of distance can make a difference. And down in Ohio, it seems to be a little bit better. So maybe there'll be some warmer weather on the way, but I guess it comes from the north. And well, you're in the middle of it, Shelley. If you want earlier, I know you had to come a little bit later. We did have a mention of curling earlier. So, is curling considered a family sport in Canada, or is curling still one of those bear centric drinking sports, Shelley? Oh,
Yeah, just from my knowledge of, not all that familiar with. I see it on TV, and of course, it's not necessarily a family sport, but you do get familial people, sisters, brothers, who basically are encouraged by other family members to participate. But I've never done any curling with that stone. It's a very interesting skill to acquire over time, and here it's big in Ontario. I've never been to a curling rink, but I don't think it's family based as much as individual, and it's basically probably more females now in curling than we've ever had. It's more of a female dominant type of activity rather than a male dominant. But we're supposed to get, I guess, almost equal on both sides. But I see a lot of females participating, and that's good to get out a little bit of exercise, as you're sliding down the ice and trying to get that lovely stone into the center, and then using your broom to maneuver it. So I'm not all that familiar with the curling situation, other than what I've seen on news events and so on. Back to you, VA3KY.
VA3KY, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. I hear stories of it in Florida. People that do curling. Are there any other?
W1HMM with a comment?
Yes, go ahead with the comment. Who's that?
This is Harry, W1HMM.
Okay, Harry, go ahead, W1HMM. I'm glad you're back with us. Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta, go ahead.
So I can tell you, as someone who curled up until a few years ago when I tore my rotator cuff, it may not be a family sport on the higher levels, but on the lower levels, it's a very social sport, very much family oriented. I have curled with my wife and two of my daughters. It was a very pleasant experience. It's also a sport where you are not at a disadvantage, no matter how old you are. I curled on a team where there were two of us in our 40s or 50s, and my daughter who was in her mid-teens, and a gentleman who was just turned 80, and we won the tournament for the season. I highly recommend it. It's a very friendly game. You're expected to call your own fouls. The winning team buys drinks for the losing team after the game. I don't know how you can go wrong with it. There are a lot of women on the professional end. I think they get a lot more press than the men do, just because this is one sport where they are not at a disadvantage. Similar to tennis, you see much more coverage of the women's tennis matches than you do of the men's. But I'm a big fan of curling. That's what I'm watching in the Olympics now. We have two really great teams coming into the finals for the mixed doubles, the American team and the Italian team. And I have to tell you, I've met 3 out of the 4 of the players, and they're all marvelous people. So I honestly don't care who wins. I think it's going to be a really good match, and good people win. So that's what I'm concerned about. Back to you.
Okay, W1HMM, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta, AA4FL at the mic for ID, Hawthorne, Florida. We're going to close up the net here shortly because we're over the hour we usually occupy. We do appreciate on 20 meters that we're allowed the use of this frequency every week for those of us that try to stay clear of QRM. It is in the POTA category of frequencies, but we well predate POTA, and that's why we're still using the frequency if you're looking for POTA stations and happened upon us. our organization, the Medical Amateur Radio Council, has been in existence since 1966. We've sort of been pivoting lately to the public face called Healthcare Hams. You can find us on healthcarehams.org. And we also record when we have these common Zoom simulcasts with 20-meter nets, and we talk about these topics. We record them, and then we make them into videos for YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, 3 separate words, Health Care Hams. You'll find probably 45 or 50 recordings of medical subjects. And what's nice is the public is interested in these topics. But what they don't know when they find them on YouTube is that they're hearing a amateur radio net. So not only are they finding out information and hopefully widely information from individuals discussing a topic, but then they find out about amateur radio. It's a stealthy way to get them interested in amateur radio. We have some comments, by the way, being that we do have a Zoom simulcast. Some of the comments, and I know Andy's with us, who's had the mic here at WJAB, but he wrote in that his older son has been curling for 8 years now. He and his wife, 8 and 12-year-old sons, are participating and playing as well. So you can see, Harry, where Andy concurs too, that it can be a family sport. And we're glad to hear there's still some nobility and chivalry, and everything's not for money. It can be family-based. The Olympics, and watching the Olympics today, get a double dose to a degree. Curling is there, as well as other sports that, tentatively were considered to be non-professional. Of course, that's changed somewhat over the years. And also, Keith, M3 AM, I also wanted to mention that Penn State Wrestling, you can watch that from other people that have made posts. Bill Otten, KC9CS, who had to depart the net a little early, said, adding to the mention of Penn State, is if you have cable TV on the weekends, you can catch the Penn State's men's wrestling team, perhaps the best in the country right now. And they're terrific and loaded with talent. So there's many ham radio operators that aren't as interested in football and the Super Bowl, but the types of activities that surround sports and the effect on one's health was up for discussion today, and I hope you found it very interesting. Do we have any parting comments on 20 meters before we bring the net to a close? Make your call to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta.
Yeah, I have a quick comment.
Yeah, we have a comment on Zoom from Barry, or you're going to do this on 20 meters, Barry. Go ahead. WB1FFI.
Yeah, I'll do it on Zoom. Just to Andy, I just looked up the date. It was January 2023, on a Monday night football game. Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills suffered a cardiac arrest on the field. So a lot of Americans, a lot of people were watching this game and saw that the immediate attention of the medical personnel administering CPR, and ultimately a defibrillator was available. And he's playing professional football for the Buffalo Bills again, which is amazing. The fact that he survived, the fact that he was rehabilitated, and to play at that level again is a testimony to great immediate medical attention and his training and the whole thing. So that was something that took place in Cincinnati. And just a quick thing to Keith regarding boxing. We have in a neighboring town from Syracuse, the International Boxing Hall of Fame, which is not that well advertised, but it's very interesting. They have the old ring from the Madison Square Garden, and fist molds from many fighters going back, even Muhammad Ali. So if people are passing through the Syracuse region, it's just something to make a note of if you're a boxing fan. Anyway, it's getting late. I'll throw it back to you, Jay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Barry. I wasn't aware of that Hall of Fame. Is the food a little different there? On the drink, do they serve punch? Sorry, I'm demented. What can I say?
I'm not aware of food being served. I'm not aware of food being served at the Hall of Fame.
Okay, do we have any, thank you, Barry from Syracuse. Do we have any other comments on our Zoom side before we bring the net to a close?
Comment. N3IM.
Okay, let's turn it over to N3IM first. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I just mentioned on Penn State Wrestling, February 13th, one of the biggest matches of the year for Penn State is going to be against Ohio State. Penn State's number 1, Ohio State's number 2. And Penn State's undefeated in 84 matches. So we'll see what happens.
Wow, thanks. Hopefully some of us get a chance to watch collegiate sports now that's not subsidized by great amounts of money. I think the football and basketball programs in both colleges are much different now. We had another comment. Who is that? Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Jay. KD5Q83, the missing link on the in the Zoom meeting here. Couple things. One, talking about weather. What month is this, by the way? 9 days, 69, 70, 73, 75, 74, 68, 70, 72, and 70 at 4,000 foot elevation. Everyone was talking about sports and sporting and the Olympics and everything. I grew up in cold climate, and of course, we did play hockey, and we typically ended up on a pond somewhere playing, which was always entertaining because you had to carry all your gear there, and then get set up and play. But it was always fun. It was always up in the woods somewhere, and that was entertaining as well. When I came to El Paso, and they started with the minor league hockey team. That gave us an opportunity to get out and play. And with Fort Bliss and people from up north, we had a lot of people to play with. And I remember being in a shop up in Rhode Island, walking around with one skate, one shoulder pad, a knee pad, pair of pants. Linda looked at me and just shook her head. I said, I go shopping with you all the time for clothes, and so this should be no different. And it wasn't, but it was cute to say the least. And I did that for a couple of years, and right up until the time they started the junior leagues, and then they started the junior leagues at times that we would start at, the pickup hockey in the evenings. And so rather than go play at 10 o'clock to midnight or something, I went with Plan B, and that was the end of my hockey career in El Paso. But just thought I'd make that comment. Back to you.
Okay, well, ice hockey and hot weather climates is still popular, KD5QHV. So let me think about this. You're getting the warm weather now, but El Paso, I don't know. Sometimes you can have 30 days where it's 100 degrees or more. So I'm glad you're having some nice weather now, Bernie. Is 30 degrees the record of 100 over and never below, or is it greater than that? Bernie, KD5QHV, go ahead.
No, we've had colder, just not this year. The lows for the next 9 days, 47, 50, 49, 47, 49, 44, 42, 40 hike. And I guarantee you, people in Canada would just love to have temperatures like that in February.
Yeah. Okay. Shelley, did you have some additional comments you'd like? VA3KY before we bring that to a close? Glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you. That'll never happen in February. January and February are the coldest months in the province of Ontario, and most likely in other provinces across Canada. But we've had an extremely long cold spell, and the temperatures when they reach the bitter cold, we got to watch out for that nasty frostbite. And they're warning people, please don't go out with proper protection. You're going to regret it after the fact. We had a guy on a construction site about a week and a half ago was working without a head covering, and he started to experience some pain in both ears. Started rubbing both ears, and guess what happened? Both ears fell off, unfortunately. You got to take precautions. The warnings on the screen. Bitter cold, take precautions, watch out for frostbite. Hospitals are seeing a few extra patients these days for frostbite, not to the extent where they lose some of the appendages, unfortunately, but fortunately, we have people who've lost fingertips as well. So hopefully we'll get warmer in July. And July is just a stone's throw away. Back to you, 3KY.
Okay, thank you for that Canadian perspective, Shelley. We appreciate you being here. as an individual and as certainly the representative of your area, because it's a breath of fresh air, even if it's cold air. Thank you for being here with us. Do we have any other comments on the Zoom side before bringing the net to a close? Make your call to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Okay, nothing more heard here. If there's no late check-ins on 20 meters, with one last opportunity to get in the log here. We use NetLogger for our net, by the way. If those of you aren't familiar with NetLogger, you can download that on the internet so that you can see who's checked in for the net. Any additional check-ins? Make your call in 20 meters. This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. All right, well, thank you for everybody that's been here with us today, and I hope the general public will find this interesting. It certainly took some interesting twists and turns here today on the discussion.